Relief is a sculptural method in which the sculpted pieces are bonded to a solid background of the same material. To start, prepare a plastic or hard wooden surface. Build up a clay surface of any shape you like. Make it at least 5 mm thick, up to 1.5 cm. Thickness of the relief is mostly determined by its size. If it's too big, it's naturally expected to make it thicker. You may go for a thick relief if that's how you like it. If you aren't going for an expressionist relief, make the surface as smooth as you like. When flat, cut the edges with a knife, but make sure you have enough space around for the clay walls when making a mold. This is the motif I'm going with, an old drawing of the Sphinx. There are two ways I usually use to transfer the drawing or a photo to the clay surface. You may either draw it directly, as I am in this video, or you may print a photo or a drawing and lean it on the clay surface. You may draw over it gently and it will leave slightly less visible outline of the model. You may start building up the relief once the draft is done. There are two approaches to this part. You may either build up a very solid first floor, a silhouette of your motif, or you may build it up instinctively like I did in this video. The term relief is from the Latin verb relevo, to raise. To create a sculpture in relief is to give the impression that the sculpted material has been raised above the background plane. There are different degrees of relief: high relief, mid relief, and low relief. Logically, the most protruding areas are the ones that would be closest to you had your model been in the room in front of you. Leaving it overnight. Make sure the clay is wet and soft before you start. Start building a clay wall. Wall may be made with soda cans too. I mostly use this technique. Roll a thick worm-like stripe of clay. Press it down lightly so it doesn't get stuck to the surface of your working desk. You may cut the ends straight. Merge them firmly around your relief to make a pool for it. The walls must be 2 to 3 times taller than the relief itself. The whole wall has to be equally tall. Make sure all the edges are sealed well. Any holes may allow poured plaster to leak all over your desk, ruin all your clay and furniture. Make additional clay worms to make the inner side of the pool as soft and textureless. Seal everything well. Occasionally wet the clay, but not immediately before pouring. When the walls are done, it's time to make columns. Roll thick clay worms and add several to the outer side of the pool. If you don't do this, the weight of the poured plaster, still not firm, might just break through the soft clay walls and spill all over your clean clay, desk, chair, perhaps carpet. Don't take that lightly. As long as your inner side is smooth, clay will be minimally damaged. Keeping clay clean is important for several reasons. Any plaster residue makes it bad for firing. In the kiln, clay is slightly shrinking. Any plaster will simply keep its size and simply break the clay either during or sometime after firing. I may say more about that some other time. You also don't want plaster chunks in clay while sculpting. Also, low quality plaster may start degrading in your clay, releasing a not so pleasant scent. Mixing plaster in. You don't want it to be too sparse, but also not too thick. Add it slowly. As long as it's sinking in all the areas, it needs more. If there is too much plaster, it will harden too soon and take in less details. After there is a bit floating, it's time to mix it. If you are making a mold that will serve many uses, don't mix too much of it. It will take about 2 different layers. First one to take in all the details, second to add hemp fiber. Make sure to break all the chunks. If there's a light but non-transparent yogurt-like layer covering your hand, it's just perfect to start working. Don't spill everything in just immediately. Take time, cover a bit by bit, and don't touch with tools or fingers. It may ruin textures like imprints of tools and fingerprints on the clay. Once you covered the relief with the first layer, gently pour the leftover plaster for the first layer. It is important that first layer is minimum 2 millimeters thick. Hemp fiber goes into the second layer, might otherwise be visible through the mold and ruin the tiles you will be taking out later. Let it rest for 2 minutes, but don't wait for too long. Meanwhile, prepare the hemp nests and mix more plaster. Same procedure, you may add a little less plaster this time, just slightly less. Hemp nests don't have to be too thick. Just take a thin strand and tangle it in your hand. Dip it in while the plaster is still very liquid and take off the extra plaster not to spill everywhere. Cover the whole surface, but don't have it touch the clay walls. Hemp fiber will simply make it very strong and durable. Nests should be touching one another. Pour the rest over. I was a bit short, so I mixed a little more aside just to make a smooth top. Since I will be using this mold many times, I want it to be strong and thick. Therefore, I intend to pour more. I'm adding texture so new layer will stick on the old one, just slightly better. And that's it. Let it rest for 10 to 15 minutes. Start taking off clay walls and clean them as you put the clay in the bag. When nothing is in the way anymore, gently attempt to take the mold off. Clay will probably be trapped inside, and that's okay. If you don't wish to save the original, you may simply use loops to dig it out. If you want to save it, just use knife and start from one corner, leaning the mold upside down. I changed my mind in the middle of digging. I filled the whole back and got the original clay model out. Clean leftover clay with a larger chunk of clay. Delicate tools don't ruin the details while cleaning up. You may use a gentle brush. I will be taking out tiles of clay out of this mold and firing them in kiln, which is why I need a durable mold. A waste mold is the one that doesn't need hemp fiber in it most of the time and which will be destroyed once the plaster cast is pulled over the mold. When you start squeezing a new relief into the mold, make sure you spread everything from one chunk you start with. That way you won't be left with cracks of air, ruining the surface of the relief, which I personally prefer to leave sometimes, as it gives the sculpture a rustic stone appearance. No need to rush with this part, you don't have to fill it in completely. Squeeze the first layer and build up a clay armature on it, like a web. Get a knife or painting spatula and gently push through the corner. Then try to take the corner out with your finger. Don't sweat it, it can easily be retouched and repaired. You may add preferably 2 wire loops on which your relief will later hang. Don't make them too big, otherwise the clay might crack around it in the kiln. Don't worry about it falling off, the clay shrinks in the kiln, grabbing the wire tightly. Leave it to dry for a couple of days. Don't move the clay too much before firing, as the clay is most sensitive and easy to break when completely dried. However, it may bend while drying, so make sure you push it back in straight position every once in a while. Thank you for watching. I hope this might have helped.